Trump wins. The Senate has flipped to the GOP, and the GOP is holding a thin lead in the House. The votes are still being counted, but hey, this was a clear victory for Republicans. We'll discuss what it means for the markets and how it might impact ag in the Farmer Forum. But first, we'll take a look at a surprising new Ag Economy Barometer.
Live from the day after via Farm Journal broadcast, this is AgriTalk. This morning we'll begin with a conversation with Dr. Jim Mintert from Purdue. Then it's our Farmer Forum with panelists Chad Ingels and Frank Howey. Directly following the news, Margie Eckelkamp from The Scoop. I'm handsome newsman Davis Michelson. Now, here's the host of AgriTalk, Chip Flory.
All right, Davis. Hey, man, happy day after. Woo! I can't believe that we've got results. We've got results.
We do. Yep. Clear cut.
And the 45th president of the United States is now the 47th president of the United States.
Yep.
Or will be after January. Wow. When you talk about turning a map red, they will look back at the 2024 elections, and that is it. That is it. Of course, a lot of the analysis that is being done at this point is, well, here's what the Democrats did wrong. Here's what Harris did wrong. Here's what cost them. Why aren't we focused on this is why he won? This is why the Senate has flipped to the GOP. It's not because of mistakes that were made. It's because of the trends. The basic fundamental trends. They're doing all kinds of analysis, Davis. All kinds. Yeah. Why did the Latinos, and I apologize to all the Puerto Ricans, the Mexicans, the Cubans that they put under that umbrella. I know that you don't like that term, the Latinos, but we're going to use it for now. Why did the Latinos turn out for Trump? Why did young black men turn out for Trump? Guys, okay, that matters in figuring out why Harris lost.
Yes. What
matters in figuring out why Trump won is just the fundamentals. I mean, do we have to go back to Bill Clinton for this? It's the economy.
Yeah.
It's the moral direction. It's the way that the campaign was run from the very beginning, taken away from President Biden without a primary, and this ticket was decided on by what, 4 or 5 people, Davis? This is the people saying this isn't how to run the country.
Yep.
Wow.
Yes. A big night.
What a result.
And has she conceded yet? Has
No.
she appeared? I've seen nothing. I don't want to miss anything here, but I haven't seen anything at all.
Does that mean that there are some court cases, some lawsuits, some challenges, some court challenges coming on the results? I can't imagine that there would be. Well, although it is kind of strange that she got, 20 million fewer votes than Biden did.
Is it strange, though? Is it? I mean.
What are you saying, Davis? What are you saying?
Here's the thing, too, dude.
You got something gnawing at you?
They've been building the case against the Orange Man for 15 years now. You remember before he decided to start running for president? Everybody loved him. The View thought he was great. Oprah, hanging on every word.
Would you ever think about running for president?
They asked him.
Remember how she asked that question longingly?
Yep.
And as soon as he said, and I'd probably run as a Republican, that's when Oprah turned off.
Yep. And that whole cult of hate has gotten us here. For as much as they call him,
and it's been rejected,
fascist, dictator and whatever.
It's being rejected. It's being rejected as we speak.
There you go.
It really is. It really is. You know what? There's some more that we can get to here in the news. Go ahead and get started.
Just a couple things here. Soybean futures faced heavy selling overnight, while corn and wheat also traded lower in reaction to the U.S. election results. Now, I'm looking at my screen here. I've got the wheats are mixed mostly lower. Corn I've got up 3 or 4, we'll call it. Soybeans down 3, 4, 5 cents presently here at about a little after
way off the lows in soybeans. Soybeans were my leading indicator last night. Okay. You know, at 7 o'clock when they opened, they were 4 to 5 cents lower, and then all of a sudden they're 8 to 9 cents lower, and then they're 12 to 13, 14, 15 to 18 lower. That was a pretty good indication that Trump was going to get this done.
Now we've got the U.S. dollar index more than 1,900 points higher, and front-month crude oil futures around $1.20 lower, at least when I wrote that. Now it looks like we're a little higher on the WTI, up about 47 cents in the December contract there. Trump's victory rippled through global markets. U.S. stock futures rallied. Treasury bonds tumbled as yields jumped. The U.S. dollar surged the most since 2020. And commodities face some broad selling pressure here, Chip. We'll just have to wait and see how the market digests all of this news.
Exactly. Sorry, man. I took up a lot of time at the start of the show there talking about my overall impression of this election, but I had to get it out.
We'll talk more. Yeah.
All right. Very good. Thank you so much, Davis. Let's bring in Margie Eckelkamp, editor of The Scoop. Good morning, Margie.
Hey, Chip. Good morning.
Yeah, all right. So what do you got going? You've got the next another vote is just opening up.
Yeah, another big vote, especially for our ag retailers. So every year we do a new product of the year contest. And this is really a reader's choice contest to let our audience tell us what was the most impactful or the biggest new product launch of the previous year? So maybe taking some good news out of 2024. And we have 10 finalists. The voting is now available. So folks, go to thedailyscoop.com, look in the red bar. It says vote, new product of the year. And we will be taking everyone's vote through the end of this year. So through January 1. So when you log on, you'll see our 10 finalists. And Chip, we always select these on how they can be specific to ag retailers. So this includes everything from software to application, equipment, to new crop protection products. And I know this is a trend that we've touched on AgriTalk before, but there are a few finalists that go in that category of at-plant seed box treatments and how folks are layering on some active ingredients on top of the seed there. So I encourage everyone to check it out, thedailyscoop.com. Reader's choice, it is a bit of a popularity contest, Chip, and folks can vote until January 1st.
All right, www.thedailyscoop.com. Head over there and vote for these new products. Like you said, popularity contest, but hey, the good ones are the most popular, right?
I'm not going to step on that. You're right.
Margie Eckelkamp, editor of The Scoop, thank you so much. We've got Jim Mintert from Purdue University up next.
AgriTalk is brought to you by Winfield United. Drive herbicides deeper into the plant for maximum weed control with a high-performing liquid spray tank additive. Class Act NG Adjuvant. Built for it. Learn more at WinfieldUnited.com.
Welcome back to AgriTalk. I'm your host, Chip Flory. Okay, we mentioned the Senate. I want to get this out there real quick. We mentioned the Senate, that the Senate has flipped to GOP control. The GOP picked up 3 seats so far, West Virginia, Ohio, Montana. This is according to AP, that there are still 5 races undecided. Democratic candidates lead in Michigan, Wisconsin, and Arizona, but those are very slight leads. Republican candidates lead in Pennsylvania and Nevada. There's my Iowa coming out. And Nevada.
Sneaking up on you there. Yeah.
It is. But those are very slight leads. The latest count in the House, according to AP, 180 Democrats and 199 Republicans. The GOP has picked up one net seat so far. So we'll see how that. Of course, it takes 218 to get to the majority there. All right, let's talk about the latest Ag Economy Barometer. Wow, wow. This really is. Dr. Jim Mintert from the Center for Commercial Ag at Purdue University joins us right now. Jim, it's good to talk to you again. How are you this morning?
I'm very good. Good to talk to you as well, Chip.
Wow, Jim. What happened? Talk about the base indices in the overall barometer. What moved things around?
So people became a lot more optimistic in mid-October. The survey was done from October 14th through the 18th, and I think that's important to note in terms of the timing. That matters. So the Ag Economy Barometer Index was up 27 points to a reading of 115. Remember, last month it was down all the way to 88. And then if you look at the underlying indices, the Ag Economy Index of Future Expectations and the Index of Current Conditions, they were both up as well. But the biggest one was the Future Expectation Index. It was up 30 points compared to the prior month, and it was the highest reading since July of 23. So, what really took place is people became more optimistic in general, but they especially became more optimistic about the future. And I have to say, thinking about the politics, and I know you've been talking about the election results this morning quite a bit. If you look back to that time frame in mid-October, that was a time frame when we started to see some indications that the Trump campaign was starting to gain relative to the Harris campaign. And I think that was a factor with respect to the group that we surveyed. I think that made them just a little more optimistic about what was going to take place down the road. And they were consistent. As you look down at the very number of questions that we ask, they were consistent. They were internally consistent with respect to things about farmland values, a little more optimistic about whether or not it was a good time to make investments, even farm machinery capital investment index up. So it was a very internally consistent survey, and it was one that said, hey, we're more optimistic about what things are going on. The other way to think about it, Chip, I think is, this group was telling us that they view the downturn in 2024 as transitory, and looking ahead to 2025, they think things will be better.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. I love the way that you ask questions, similar questions, to get confirming results, and you ask how many of you expect bad times for the U.S. ag economy in the upcoming year. And a decline from 73% of respondents in September to just 53 in October took 20 points off of those that expect bad times in the year ahead, took 20 points off, and then for the next 5 years, took it from 48% down to 33%. Those are major moves, Jim.
Yeah, and that's what really drove the index higher. And I thought it was useful this time. We don't usually talk about the individual questions so much, but I have to say, when we got these results, Michael Langemeyer, my co-author, and I were scratching our heads, right? And Michael does the computations when we get the results back, and his first reaction was to redo all the computations a second time to make sure we had this correct. But clearly, attitudes changed, remarkably so. And, if you think about some of the traditional things that we talk about with respect to what influences sentiment, we had good harvest, right? Many places, record state yields. I've talked to a number of farmers, best yields they've ever had. Okay, that was a positive. We had a pretty stress-free harvest season in the sense that it was dry in much of the country and made it relatively easy to get the crop out of the field. Yeah, that probably contributed. But that doesn't explain what happened here, right? Those are contributing factors, but that's not what was really behind this.
Right. I mean, I think this barometer just became one of the things that we're going to look at in 2028 as a leading indicator on how the vote's going to turn out, right?
Well, it's a very interesting survey, and so one of the things that we do in the
It's
background is we ask some questions. We learned something in 2016. In 2016, if you remember, Chip, we got caught flat-footed. We didn't
Yep.
realize that a presidential election could have a big impact on people's sentiment, but boy, it sure did. If
Oh
you
yeah.
look at what happened to the barometer between October of 2016 and November of 2016, I think the index went up 24 points. And then it went up again in December and it went up again in January. And if you look at the numbers, we went all the way from 92 in October that year up to, I think, over 150. I think we're at 153 in
Yep.
January. So that's when we kind of learned that people do allow these external events like presidential elections to influence their sentiment. So this time around, we've been asking some questions before the election that we're going
Hmm.
to repeat next week when we do the November survey, and we'll
Okay.
learn what were the drivers? What was it that made you become more optimistic? And I think we'll learn a lot more about things about how people feel about tax policy, how they feel about the regulatory environment, how they feel about trade. I mean, the ag markets overnight and this morning been focused pretty heavily on what the potential impacts are on ag
Yes.
trade. Um, those are all really valid questions. How did people perceive what was taking place in the campaign and the rhetoric,
Hmm.
and how that's going to impact their lives and livelihood?
Yep. Yep. Jim, I love the graphic that you guys put together. The word graphic: policy, politics, prices, environment, income, weather, inputs. And I think at that time that you took the survey was around the time that RFK Jr. was becoming a story in all of this, and his involvement, I think, attracted a lot of attention to some of these issues. That I'm not looking for a comment on that, Jim. That's just an observation from me. Um, it the impact on the outlook for land values, Jim. Talk about that, because man, oh man, we usually don't see big swings like this in land value expectations, but here it is.
Yeah, that's when we knew we were internally consistent. We started looking at those
Yeah.
farmland value expectation responses. The short-term farmland value expectation index, which asks people to look ahead 12 months with respect to what they think is going to happen to farmland values in their area. That jumped 25 points from a month earlier and left that index just 5 points lower than a year ago. And if you look at that index on a chart, Chip, you could draw a pretty strong downward trend. Not that we had a real negative index, but we were clearly becoming less optimistic about farmland values going back the last
Yes.
really almost 3 years. And to see that kind of a bounce, that takes that index almost back to where it was last year and really not too far below where it was 2 years ago. Think about how
Right.
much the economic environment has changed over that time frame. So clearly, this was a sentiment boost. People became more optimistic. And I think, you know, it's going to be interesting when we get the November results to see how the immediate reaction is just a few days after the election. Then
Yeah.
it's going to be interesting to see what people are thinking about next January, February, March, as we start to get into actual policy changes taking place. So it's going to be a fascinating time to watch what farmers have to say about what they think is going on in the ag economy.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Throw something in there about RFK and what farmers think about his potential involvement in the Trump administration going forward. It I'm getting a lot of feedback on that. Is all I'm saying, Jim, and it's an interesting thought as we go forward. We're going to talk about it coming up in the Farmer Forum here a little bit as well. Jim, this is fascinating stuff. What else are, and I just got to say this too. The ability of you guys to adjust, because you do it on a monthly basis, to adjust kind of on the fly to match what is happening in the real world. That's what makes this thing so impressive and so telling. Jim, good work. Good work. Any other
It's also
plans?
what makes it fun, Chip. To be
Oh,
honest with you,
yeah.
the opportunity to ask these kinds of questions. In fact, we're sitting here this morning. In the next couple of days, we'll finalize the results or the questions for the November survey. So we're still thinking about exactly what we want to include in this survey, but it's going to
Yeah.
be interesting. I guarantee that.
Man, it's fun to have these conversations. Jim, thank you so much for making time for us again.
Thank you for the opportunity, and I look forward to visiting with you in a few weeks.
All right, Jim Mintert, Purdue University. Farmer Forum's next.
Time for Markets Now with the experts from Pro Farmer.
Joining us now, Pro Farmer editor Brian Grady Beach. Boy, oh boy, there's been some activity in the market since we started to get the early results of the election last night.
Yeah, absolutely, Chip. Quite a bit of volatility. And I'm going to start with the outside markets. So active Trump trade, so-called Trump trade, is going on at the moment. Stock market sharply higher. Bonds under heavy pressure, which means that the yields are up sharply. The U.S. dollar index is sharply higher. Commodities as a whole are under heavy pressure, but the bulk of that is in the gold and silver markets, which are just getting pounded today. So a lot of activity in those outside markets. Now, as we switch focus back to the grain and soy markets, corn. It's rebounded off its earlier lows, and it didn't face nearly as much price pressure as some of the other markets did during the overnight trade, but now trading 3 to 5 cents higher here at mid-morning. The wheat market trying to work to the upside a little bit with SRW contracts trading fully to the upside, and the other two markets starting to show just a little bit of price strength. Soybeans are under pressure, but only 2 to 4 cents lower and well off their overnight lows.
Yeah, well off those lows, no doubt, no doubt. Okay, go over to the livestock trade. We've got some gains in the cattle complex.
Yeah, so live cattle futures are posting slight to moderate gains here at mid-morning. The feeder cattle are trading sharply to the upside despite the strength that I talked about in the corn market. So that's kind of an interesting development as we sit here right now. Still waiting on cash cattle trade to develop for the week, but probably going to be weaker, but not a whole lot. And then kind of mixed trade in the hog market this morning.
All right, Brian, good stuff. Thank you so much. That is Pro Farmer editor Brian Grady on Markets Now.
Opinions expressed on AgriTalk do not necessarily reflect the views of Farm Journal Broadcasting, affiliate stations, or sponsors. The chickens have come home to roost. Find out whose fence they're perched on today on AgriTalk.
Welcome back to AgriTalk on this Wednesday morning. That means it is time for this week's Farmer Forum. Let's get it started and bring in Frank Howey from North Carolina. Good morning, Frank. How are you?
Good morning. Doing great, Chip.
Good. Glad you're here. Let's before we bring Chad in, I do want to get an update from you on how the harvest has been going, and you know, I'm curious, were you in the way of Hurricane Helene down there, Frank?
It was mostly to the west of us, and of course the mountains got devastated of North and South Carolina, but we got a good bit of rain out of it, but we haven't had any rain since to speak of, just a very small shower, and actually very dry. We're about 80% done with soybean harvest, and we're planting winter wheat here. Okay.
All right. How did the cotton crop fare down there? Or is there not much cotton in your area?
It's real. Yields are very variable. We had too much rain out of Debbie, hurt the yields in the eastern parts of North and South Carolina, but a little further west, the cotton is better, where it didn't get too much rain at one time.
Right. Okay. I guess I'm a little surprised to hear that you've still got 20% of the bean crop out there in the field. Is it doing okay?
Yes. It's
okay.
We're really almost up to what's ready to harvest because we grow later maturing varieties here.
Yeah. Okay. How's your grass doing, Frank?
It looks really bad because we've just been so dry and warmer than normal. We've had a lot of 70-degree days and just no rainfall.
Right. Okay. All right. Frank, stay with us. By the way, Frank is the 2018 Top Producer of the Year. He's from Monroe, North Carolina down there. And let's bring in Chad Ingels. Chad is an Iowa farmer. He also represents the people of the 68th District of Iowa in the Iowa State House. Chad won re-election last night. Congratulations, Chad. Do we have Chad? Might have to take... there he is. Are you there, bud?
I think I'm back.
There you are. There you are. Congratulations, man. How are you?
Hey, I'm doing really, really well today.
Yeah. I hear you. We're going to get to that. We're going to get to all of that. But first, the crop report. Give us a crop report.
Yep. So I have just a handful of corn acres left. Our corn has done really well up here. Beans were disappointing. We kind of, from what I've heard, early planted beans did really well, but planted later didn't do so hot. So those are disappointing for me, especially.
Yeah. Okay. And it's been a pretty incredible fall. Now you've picked up quite a bit of rain here over the past 10 days, right?
Yeah, we were kind of in the heart of the drought, and we've had close to 4 inches here in the last 10 days or so.
Yeah, and it's kind of changed things up, and we can still get some field work done, but we still need some cooler temperatures if guys are going to lay down a bunch of anhydrous this fall, don't we?
Oh, definitely. The guys were kind of holding off on doing much field work before because it was so dry, and I want to get some cover crops seeded yet because I didn't want to just put them out there with no rain, and so we haven't had a chance to do that since we got some moisture.
Yep. And, well, you were doing quite a bit of, or had to do a fair amount of campaigning leading up to last night as well. Okay, so, Chad, give it to me. What did last night tell you? What signals are you taking?
Well, I think in Iowa especially, we added seats in the Iowa House, and I think we stayed pretty stable in the Iowa Senate. It just shows that Iowans are happy with kind of the tax policy that we've tried to implement, and we've got a good economy in general in Iowa. Our state government is financially stable, and so things are rocking and rolling there. And I think nationwide, I know comments earlier in the show that I think people wanted disappointed in how the Democrats handled their candidate process, and we're kind of fed up with that, and decided we want to change back to what we had prior to 2020.
Yeah, no doubt. Frank, down in North Carolina, you were one of the, North Carolina was one of the states that kind of gave us one of the first signals of how things might turn out for President Trump. What do you make of the whole thing?
Well, I think Trump really did a good job turning out his base, and I never did think North Carolina was not going to vote for Trump. So
right.
I never really thought it would be close, and it didn't really turn out to be that close. But he had a lot of support here local, especially among farmers.
Right. Yeah, and I think it's the margins. I've had a couple of guys reach out to me and say, you know what, the results of the election aren't that surprising, but it's the margin in which he won. And like you said, Frank, I don't think North Carolina was in doubt, but to see Trump win by as much as he did, I think was a big surprise, or not a big surprise, but it was an indicator, a kind of a leading indicator of how the night was going to go. And then, Chad, what happened to the polls in Iowa? I mean, the latest polls showed that Harris was going to win.
I think they had some sampling error there from what I saw in the kind of the methodology, and I'm not sure what that poll is usually pretty accurate, but it kind of went off the rails this year. Yeah,
it sure did. Absolutely. Okay, so Chad, what are your thoughts now with the way that with the Trump administration, with the way the GOP is set up in the Senate, and it still looks very tight on who's going to have control of the House. But when we think about trade issues and so on, Chad, I mean, this is it's something that we can't lose focus of the fact that tariffs are probably going to be a way of life now for a while, aren't they?
I think so, and that it's a piece of it that doesn't really excite me. When we think back, we had several infusions of government funds into the ag economy because of tariffs between 2016 and 2020. I'm not sure that's the right way to go, but we haven't hardly talked about trade the last 4 years either. So I think it's important to get that discussion back on the table and get the right people in those positions and be proactive and just kind of, rather than just kind of hanging around.
Yeah. Frank, trade issues for you, where does that, where does it fit on your anxiety list, I guess we'll call it, as we've got the Trump administration coming in?
Well, I just, every time you mess with trade, you get unintended consequences. And, I just hope that if farmers get nailed on trade issues, that he'll remember us and make sure we're made whole, because a lot of what we're producing now, especially in the crop sector, is below cost of production. And so farmers are already suffering. So we don't need to suffer more. And, equipment sales are down. The ag economy is already suffering.
Yeah. So, Frank, when you hear him say that he's going to put a 10 to 20% tariff on all imports, and when he looks at China and talks about a higher level of tariffs on goods coming in from China, do you believe him? Do you think that is going to happen?
I absolutely believe him, and I absolutely believe it will ignite inflation again in the United States, because those tariffs are going to be passed on to the consumer. And we'll also become the supplier of last resort for China if he does that, and I do believe he will do it.
Yeah. Yep. What about you, Chad? Do you believe it when he talks about the tariffs?
I agree with Frank 100%, and I think since we're kind of itching from inflation, I think we're probably going to see some inflation. And despite what Trump says, the American consumers are the ones that pay for our tariffs. I mean, that's more money out of our pocket and higher costs. So.
Well, I'm telling you guys, that's why the Fed is meeting right now, okay? And tomorrow when we get the announcement, we are expecting a quarter-point cut in the Fed funds rate, because that is the widespread expectation. But then you take a look at what's happening in the interest rate markets, and the yields are going to the upside. They anticipate exactly what you are talking about, guys. They anticipate that there's going to be another push of inflation, and when that happens, it's going to create the need for higher interest rates down the road. Okay, we're in the middle of the Farmer Forum. Chad, if you can stick around, that would be great. If you can't, I completely understand. Frank, I want you to come back. There's a couple of things that I want to talk about with you in the final segment here of the Farmer Forum. We've got Chad Ingels from Iowa, Frank Howey from North Carolina. We're going to continue the Farmer Forum and some reaction to the elections next.
AgriTalk is brought to you by ESN. Don't risk your nitrogen investment. ESN is designed to beat the 5 ROI killers and provide season-long end to your crop. Learn how ESN works at smartnitrogen.com.
Welcome back to the Farmer Forum here on AgriTalk. Just a real quick update. At the start of the show, the count in the U.S. House was 180 Democrat, 199 GOP. It is now 181 Democrat, 199 GOP. Still need, of course, the 218. The GOP has gained one seat so far. Not a lot of movement in the Senate races from what we talked about at the start of the show. All right, we have got Chad Ingels from Iowa. Chad represents the people of the 68th District in the Iowa House. We've got Frank Howey from North Carolina with us. Okay, guys, RFK Jr., he became a real topic of discussion in the final month, maybe 6 weeks of this presidential election. Chad, do you anticipate that he's going to have much of a role?
My personal opinion, I hope not too much, the comments he's made, but I think he's going to have Trump's ear for a while, and I really hope that when Trump starts putting secretaries in place, we get for like agriculture, we get somebody in the Sonny Purdue model, and health and human services, we get somebody with that kind of has a broader look at things. But I think RFK Jr. is bringing up some topics that people are concerned about and want to have a discussion about, but they're kind of out there sometimes.
Yep. Okay. What about you, Frank? Do you think RFK Jr. is going to have much of a role?
I hope he doesn't have any role.
Okay.
I think he would be bad, especially for the EPA, because he's anti a large ag, is what I've heard.
Yep. Yeah. Well, he does tend to demonize it. There's no question about that. Speaking of ag commissioners, Frank, do you know the results of the race down there in North Carolina? It was Troxler and Tabor, right?
Yes, I think Troxler was the winner without any problem.
Yep. Tabor was an interesting candidate.
Yeah. He was against family farms.
Yep. And she really wanted the position. Really wanted the position is what it looked like to me. So anyway,
yeah.
Okay, and another name. I'm interested in what you think about the role that Elon Musk might play and the role that he did play in the elections. Chad, what'd you make of it?
That was surprising. The more involved he got, that really surprised me, because he had some different views in the past, and maybe he saw something coming that we all didn't necessarily see in a big way. But he brings some innovation and some ideas to the table. We're going to kind of push the envelope a little bit, I think, with having him involved, and I don't think it's probably going to be a bad thing. I think he's going to be positive on some of the financial things that people talk about. So,
okay. What about on biofuels? Do you think he will have much of an influence on biofuels? I mean, he does make electric cars.
I hope that Trump continues his previous stance of we need to have all of the above energy policy, and continues moving biofuels forward, because that is very important, especially for Iowa. So. Yep.
So, Frank, what did you think of Elon Musk and his involvement in the election to this point?
I think he probably made a difference. It was a lot of money that he contributed. It's to him it probably wasn't a lot of money, but to ordinary people, it was a pile of money that he donated to the cause. And normally people don't make a donation. They're not expecting to get more back than they give.
Do you think that's the case this time, or do you think maybe Musk does expect to get paid back through policy going forward?
I think he'll be writing the policy.
Yeah, I I think there's a chance that might happen. That might happen. All right, fellas. Hey, thank you so much for your time this morning. I really appreciate you making your opinions known on these issues. Well, hey, real quick, Frank, how is the recovery going down in North Carolina? Is everything looking okay?
It's amazing how the community has come together to help people.
Sure.
We've hauled hay to share with farmers who lost hay to the storm. We've done things to help here, and I know all the communities have worked together to help them recover, but they're going to need a lot more help. This is devastating what they've gone through.
Yep. I tell you what, Frank, we've been trying to keep it on the radar for America, and so that we don't lose track of just how devastating it was in Western North Carolina and in the mountains in South Carolina too. It's just absolute devastation, and we cannot lose track of that. Thank you for everything that you're doing down there, Frank, and we'll talk to you again soon, okay?
Sounds great. You take care now.
All right. Yep. Chad, again, congratulations, and keep up the good work, and we'll keep getting you back on here to talk about the issues, okay?
Hey, thank you very much. Always good to visit with you.
You bet. Chad Ingels from Iowa, Frank Howey from North Carolina. Okay, I just doing another real quick check of the updates here. I want to get to the Senate update. Nope, no change there yet. So we're going to talk more about what the impact of the elections might be on the markets going forward this afternoon on AgriTalk 206 Central. We've got Terry Lynn from the Lynn Group coming on. This guy's been through an election or two and watched how the fallout can impact the markets going forward. We're going to talk about that this afternoon here on AgriTalk.